We are at the Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting Sports Facility. I am joined by Allan Friesen, who is the past president of Lethbridge Fish and Game and a firearms instructor, right, Allan?
Correct.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Bridge City News. Actually, you're hosting us, so
thank
you for having us here. Let's talk about what Bill C21 actually is.
So, I guess the components that I understand it to be of what I know, because it kind of reveals as we go with the changes. As an example, there's not supposed to be a registry, but there is a registry now, right? So there was a registry was put in place, then discontinued a number of years ago. Now on an unofficial basis, they've introduced a registry. So people like Marksman Guns and Sports, where they have a store, now they have to record every transaction, the owner, and they have to maintain these records for 20 years. That's a registry. So that's one thing that's been slid in that, oh, we're getting this back. Two is that these firearms that now have been said, oh, these are too scary, Canadians can't own them, those ones that are going to be prohibited, well, that equipment then will be apparently bought back, which is different than what they've done in the past. In the past, they kind of have a grandfathered kind of a status, and then the person who's grandfathered keeps the equipment until they die, and then they destroy it, is basically the idea. Okay. So with this one here, it's different. They're going to come back and say, oh, you know, you can't use this until we come back and buy it from you, and when they buy it, it's going to be, you know, it doesn't matter. As a property owner who legally bought a piece of property in Canada, they're going to tell me what they're going to accept, what I'm going to accept for it, and that's going to be the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the big chunks to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So do you think that Bill C21 will actually stop current handgun owners from owning handguns in the future?
Well, for currents, no. My understanding is they will be able to retain those guns until they die, but everybody else go forward would not. Which then like we have an amazing youth shooting program here, safe shooting department, and we have youth that are part of that, and we got 30 kids that are starting tonight in that program, right? And it is a really amazing opportunity to teach responsibility to children, to show them that their action they take has a consequence. With handguns, it happens like right away, and so we want to make that real clear that what they're using, that they have to respect it, use it safely, or they cannot participate. Yeah. So we have kids that are amazingly responsible, amazingly good citizens that have come out of that program. They're great.
So, Allan, do you think that we're now going to be seeing a rush across Canada of people buying handguns before this bill passes?
Yes. Every time the federal government announces firearm safety laws, my student list goes up, swells up, and every time people are in a flurry to buy equipment that might go away in the future, right, or might be restricted or controlled. Some of that is bizarre. When we're talking about the restricted firearms, the ones that are going to be restricted now, or prohibited, I should say. One, in my case, I have one that I bought 25 years ago, a non-restricted firearm, can use it, shoot a gopher or
shoot a gopher.
Well, you know, there are problems at the farm, so, or shoot a coyote if that's killing our cats or whatever, and then you clean it, put it back in the safe, and it's good. You know, use it for another year, right? So now I am a criminal now if I take that out of the safe. Well, that's craziness.
This, of course, is a really emotional time with all recent mass shootings in the U.S.
Yes.
So a lot of people do want to see governments do something to stop that gun violence. So do you think that banning guns will have a tangible effect on this?
No, unfortunately it will not. It's and the terrible tragedy, I cannot imagine the pain those parents in Texas are going through to have their little ones killed and it's heartbreaking. Some of them people will never recover from that kind of trauma, right? So it's horrible. But firearms, violence, like all violence, is just a symptom, right? We got to get at the cause. What is the cause? How does an 18-year-old kid get to the point where he is so disconnected and so full of hate that he's going to kill all these little innocent children, right? How does that happen? So what supports were missing to get that kid to a point where he could be helped and he would never got to that stage, right? So, and I'm not blaming him, and grandma seems like she was did her best to be a loving parent, but you know what, the kid was apparently, you know, really abused and teased and that kind of thing, and not unlike, remember the tragedy in Tabor, what is that, 15 years ago? Mm-hmm. Same thing, a little kid that was, you know, picked on and abused and told he's a worthless piece of shit every day, and then all of a sudden what happens, right? Violence is the problem. How do we address the violence, because that's the issue, right? And I think we have to draw a distinction between self-violence and violence against others. Do you think that makes sense, that distinction? Yeah, because violence against self, our laws don't seem to want to be involved with that. That if a person, a Canadian, no longer wants to be here, that they have the right to no longer be here, and then they can even get the medically assisted dying if they want. So self against harm is entirely different. So the whole thing that we're addressing is self against others. So the whole
harm against self, harm against self. Yeah.
Harm against others. Thank you. Harm against others. So that's the issue we're addressing. As it relates to firearms, that's a very, very small part of the problem. 80% of the firearm deaths in Canada are suicide. And then of the 5% that are accidents, I'm sure many of those are actually suicides as well. So we're talking a very small chunk of 1,200 Canadians, according to the Firearm Safety Course, 1,200 Canadians who die every year, at least 80% are self-harm. So
it's so sad.
It is.
Do you think it's fair to say that a bill like this, new gun laws won't necessarily change the minds of hardened criminals or gang members to somehow give up gun violence?
The laws that come into place, if we're following, if the responsible firearm owners are already following all the laws, right, and all the laws already will not allow, are so stringent already. Just as a good example, we keep hearing this as assault style rifles, right? That's what you keep hearing. Okay, so what is an assault style rifle? According to Google, if you look it up, it's a fully automatic firearm that is used in military pursuits, right? You're going to use it to kill people. That's what an assault rifle is. We don't have assault rifles in Canada. They've been banned in Canada since 1978. So we don't have them. They're banned. There is no fully automatic firearms. Well, pardon me, there's a couple old guys that probably have them, and they got them in their safe because they're never going to leave, and when they die, they're going to be chopped up and destroyed. So we don't have assault rifles in Canada, period.
Okay. Any thoughts on where the government could better spend our money to reduce gun violence?
I love that you asked that question. That is a beautiful question. But I'm going to change it up a little bit, okay? I think that reducing violence is important, but I don't think it's just gun violence because that's a really, really small part of the puzzle. Here's what I think is something we could make huge gains for people. Every day, every night in Canada, there's 3,500 women who are escaping domestic violence in their home, kiddies on their shoulders or on their hips, trying to get out of harm's way every night. And about 300 more women and their kiddos don't find shelter because there's not enough room. Okay, that is where we could make a huge, huge difference in people's lives. Instead of looking at a problem where it's mostly to do with self-harm, let's look at harm to others, very vulnerable people, and give them supports and protection.
Wow, okay. Do you think that it's too easy for someone to get a gun license in Canada? Do you think that our gun laws are too lax?
No, they are. I know we look at the South and we say, oh, we got this big problem because the South has a big problem. Our numbers are entirely different. We have 1,200 deaths in Canada from firearms in a year, right? 80% of those are suicide. In the United States, it's 35,000, something like that. Instead of 1,200, it's 35,000. It's a whole different context, right? And then also there's the firearm controls there. You could buy a gun anywhere, any weekend, you can go to a swap meet and buy a gun in the United States, right? They don't even ask for your piece of ID, right? Here, you have to take a course. You have to take 2 courses, Canadian Firearm Safety Course or Canadian Firearm Restricted Safety Course, in order that you can apply for a license. When you apply for a license, you're going to answer questions about your mental health, your financial health, your marital health, or your relationship health, those kind of things. You're going to provide references that are going to check you over. They're going to, of course, going to do a police check. And firearm owners in Canada are the most vetted people in our whole country, because every day, if I'm a firearm owner, which I am, they'd run a police check on me every day on every Canadian who has a firearm license. So we are kept to a higher standard. They don't check you, they check me every day. And if there's something there's an issue that maybe I've gone to violence or then I get approached and gee, we're going to take them firearms, right? And I don't have any problem with that. That's being prudent, but it's rarely. I've been teaching this course for 35 years. I can't think of one time where I had a student say, ooh, that guy shouldn't have a gun. I mean, the people who come here are just people who want to engage in a very safe, exciting, dynamic sport that can be a lifetime sport and is the safest sport in the world. Like you do the stats on the Olympics, like of shooting sports worldwide. Shooting is the safest sport.
So how do we keep guns from getting into the hands of the wrong people?
Well, one, be very, very harsh on the criminals, right? Like that's not happening right now. It's kind of you catch them and they get a slap in the hand and they go out. No. Firearm laws, firearm infractions, violence of any shade should be extremely harshly dealt with. We got to stop it. Like, that's the problem. Violence leads to trauma for people, right? And then that trauma leads to lives that are really hard for their whole life unless they deal with the trauma they've experienced, and often they experience as a child.
You had kind of alluded to the youth shooting program that you have here. So let's talk about the many individuals and families with kids who come out to the shooting gallery here. Is it a safe sport, in your opinion?
Let me tell you about a time when I was wrong. I've been wrong a few times. Rick Blakely was saying range 3 over here, we're going to make it into a 22 range only. They're quiet, very, very little recoil, right? And I thought, that's crazy. What is he doing? But then every night, every weekend, I see grandma there with his grandchild, and I see grandma and the aunties shooting, and it's just a beautiful family place. You come out, you buy a box of ammo for, whatever this is, $3, and you got an afternoon of fun, right, with your grandkids. It's a beautiful place. So yeah, very, very family-oriented activity that way. And with the youth program, oh man, we got some kids that are, there's one kid. He was so small, he was 12. I was really worried about him, but he was really, really dedicated to muzzle control and trigger control. He was very, very focused on it. But he had to put 2 fingers on the trigger to press it when he was so small initially.
Sure, of course.
But now he's like this tall and, like just an amazing gun handler. If anything happened, I would not be at all worried that he would be safe, whatever happened. So.
Okay, so Allan, what are the benefits of kids learning to shoot?
Well, the best thing I can share for you is that there's in all of our life, we make decisions, and those decisions result in consequences, and that, here's what happens because of it, right? With shooting, that is like down to a millisecond, right? I take this action, I press this trigger, this bullet leaves this muzzle, it hits there. So it happens right now. So in a similar way to my life, I have control. If I have control what happens here, I'm going to control what happens down there. In my life, I can make adjustments. With a firearm, I can't. Once the trigger is pressed, the bullet's going where it's going to go. But that tie to this action results in this consequence, and then relate that to this applies to your life as well, right? If you do these things, here's what's going to happen.
So life lessons then.
I think so.
Okay, so what would you say to a parent who says, hey, is this potentially going to make my child like violence or become more violent?
It will 100% help your child to become a more responsible human being, period, full stop. There's nobody that we get out here and they say, ooh, that kid came from our program and now, we got to go get him arrested because he's lost it, right? That doesn't happen, right? So
Allan, I know that we would love to hear about the facility here. It's large. It's way bigger than I expected. This is my first time here. So tell me about it.
This is an amazing facility, and we're very, very thankful for our relationship with the City of Lethbridge, Mayor, Council, and the administration. They've been very supportive. We recently had a huge enhancement to this facility. It's $1.7 million with city funds, with fish and game funds, and with a commitment to support our youth program going on. Every year we spend about $30,000 supporting youth programs. So that's free ammunition, free instruction, free range time, free targets. So, and all of the people who do that are all volunteers. So we have people who volunteer to make that happen. So an amazing world-class facility right here. The City of Lethbridge right there. How can we operate a range when the City of Lethbridge is right there? Because this is a total containment facility. With these last enhancements, this is like the world-class, the best standard you can get in terms of a projectile management. That's really what a range is, a projectile management system. And we have the best system that exists right here.
Okay, and you were saying that even the Lethbridge Police Service comes here to do their practicing.
They do. Lethbridge Police, RCMP, CBSA, we have them and support them. We're very, very big fans of law enforcement and working with law enforcement. We've had situations where law enforcement came to us and asked us about an individual. Is this, should we be worried? That kind of a thing. And what we will often do is just say, here's our cameras, here's our feed. You give it a look, right? We want to be everybody safe. We're on the same side with anti-gun Sally that doesn't want anybody to own a gun. She don't want anybody to gun because she wants to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want everybody to be safe. Firearms by themselves are not dangerous. It's a piece of equipment. We can all use them safely if we choose to.
Right.
Or not use them at all if you don't want them. That's okay.
You actually made a really good point earlier about somebody in a car.
Yes.
Because that also could be considered an assault weapon, so to
yeah.
speak.
It's, again, violence of all forms is just a symptom, right? The cause, what is the cause? That's what we have to address, right? There's water running and there's people who drown in the water. We don't say we're going to ban the river. We say we're going to teach people how to swim, and we're not going to throw kids in the river who can't swim, right? Who are not old enough to swim, right? That's what we're going to do. So in a life way, anything could be used as a weapon. And if you had, you know, my 2010 Dodge truck that I ran through people and killed people, it'd be a horrible, terrible event, of course. But I'm not expecting the government of Canada is going to, you know, ban 20-ton Dodge trucks forever. Like, it's not. It's a piece of equipment. My action was the problem, not the piece of equipment, right? And it's the same if I, you know, with violence, whether it's a knife or a fist or a foot or a baseball bat or a golf club, it's all just, it's using an appliance to do violence to people, right? That's what it is.
Okay, so on the same vein of safety,
Yes.
maybe teach us some safety tricks, I guess. If I was a brand new client here,
Yes.
what would you teach me?
Okay, by the time you leave here today, there's 2 things you're going to tell me before you go. Every time you pick up a gun, you're going to pick it, you're going to point in the safest direction, and you're going to keep your finger off the damn trigger. Those 2 things. You're going to do those consistently before you leave here. There's actually, what is there, 6, 7 steps to it, but really the 2 are: choose that have the safest muzzle direction at all times, and your finger is only on the trigger when your sights are aligned on the target. The rest of the time, your finger's off the trigger. So those 2 things. The whole thing is actually, according to the Canadian firearms course, assume it's loaded, control the muzzle, keep your finger off the trigger and other trigger guard, see that it's safe by proving it's safe. Keep it pointed in a safe direction, remove the ammunition, observe the chamber, verify the feeding path, examine the bore. So those are the actual steps. But the 2, if people leave and they keep the muzzle in a safe direction, they keep the finger off the trigger, I say hallelujah, I did my job.
Well, Allan, thanks so much for having us out today. I know I learned a lot for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you coming. Thanks for coming to our amazing facility and your interest in firearm safety. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That is Allan Friesen, the past president of the Lethbridge Fish and Game and the firearms instructor here at Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting and Sports Facility. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.